Hello everyone and welcome back to Make the Music, and today we're going to be going over how to mix some indie rock drums, specifically drums with a lot of layers. And a lot of times in these indie rock genres or pop genres, you're going to have real kit elements, you're going to have samples, you're going to have all sorts of stuff in there to add cool dynamics to the track, and I want to show you how to combine those, get your drums to fit in the mix. But before we do that, you're going to want to like and subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great stuff coming on how to make, write, record, produce, mix, and master your own music and release it out to the world. It's a very empowering thing to be able to do that. But now let's get into this mix here. So we're going to be going over the drums. I already played that in the preview, what the song sounds like. I'm going to solo the drums one more time just so you can hear. In the context of the mix. So there's a lot of great punch in there. There's also some good low end, and everything is balanced quite well. And I'm going to go into plugins I'm using and what we should do from a mix perspective. So first off, I have all my drums. Well, I have everything in the entire session going to my master bus. This is my master bus setup. I've already have a couple videos on how I set up my master chain, specifically having that bus compressor there. It's going to be hitting the drums as well. But now I'm going to get into the drums processing specifically. And so I have a couple different buses set up. And so I'm going to solo the drums here real quick. This is the main drum bus, and everything, all the drums, all these red tracks are going to that main drum bus. So everything is being processed through there. Then I have a couple different individual buses here with a kick bus and a snare bus. So all the kick drums are going to be going through there. And then all the snare hits are going to be going through the snare bus. And then the rest of the kit is just going straight to the drum bus there. So I do think it's a good idea to separate out all your kick drums. There are 4 in this drum mix, and then all your different snare hits into one bus so you can process them together and get a good balance. So the first thing we want to do when processing any kind of drum tracks is get a balance between all the elements. You can see here there's quite a few drum tracks. There's 25 total, including these buses of drum tracks. So getting a balance, I spent a lot of time in that phase, getting a balance between all these different elements here. So I start with the drums. I'm going to bypass all the plugins actually. And I just brought up the faders and just saw what sounded good, what a good blend was. I soloed some of these elements here just so I could figure out what they were. Like we've got a kick in mic there, maybe a kick out, maybe that's the kick out. This is the sub, and then another kick mic there. So we had 4 different kicks going on in the entire thing. And then for snare, we had quite a few snare mics and then a sample snare down at the bottom here. So that was the kick and snare together. And then we have a bunch of different other elements here, some sampled stuff, like some hats and things. Let me make sure the drum bus is soloed there. I had some like overhead tracks, then like a tom track there. Got like some taiko, some sticks, just some extra elements that probably would be included in an indie rock track like this one. And like I said, I spent a lot of time getting the balance between all these so they all fit together. So without the plugins, it fit like this. Okay, so I felt the balance was right, but tonally everything wasn't quite there, and I need to get it much more punchier to fit in the mix. So I started with the drum bus. So let's turn on these plugins here. First thing I had was the CLA Mix Hub Lite. All this is doing is I'm getting a little bit of top. I didn't even use the filters, it looks like. Just a little bit of top and a little bit of compression is what I'm using with this thing here. That's a real subtle plugin. And then next was Virtual Mix Rack. And I was using the virtual channel, adding some top end here at about 7.2 and then 2K, and just giving it a little bit of top, scooping out like some low mid stuff I didn't like, and then rolling off just like the super subby low end. And this is doing just a little bit of compression. You don't want to compress the drum bus too hard. It's already going through the master channel where I have compression there of close to 3 dB. So that's already hitting the drums. And then I have some individual compression on things like the kick and snare. So you don't want to smash your drums in the individual tracks and then compress them again on the drum bus and then compress them one more time. When they hit the master channel, a lot of the punch is going to be gone unless you do it really strategically. But I was just kind of taking a large bird's eye view of the drums here and just overall brightening them and getting to a place I liked. Then I'm starting to dive into these tracks here. So we got the kick. I'm going to enable the plugins there. And I'm doing some quite drastic stuff there. So I'll take the plugins off. Hear how dark it is. So I really wanted to start it here. I did the virtual mix rack, a lot of top. You can see 6.5 dB there, and another 7 dB there, scooping out some low mids, right? We really need some attack and we need some top end of this kick drum. It was way too dark, getting lost in the mix and just didn't sound finished at all. Also add a little bit of compression. You can see that's going a long ways. And then I added the CLA mix hub once again. Because this was a recorded drum kit, I'm doing some slight gating here with this part of the CLA mix hub. And then looks like I actually rolled off a bit of top end after all. Sometimes I do that. I do multiple stages of it. And I rolled off some really low end there. So I feel like my kick drum's getting a lot closer. And then on this kick in, I believe it's the kick in mic. Yeah, the kick in mic. I added some more EQ. Rolled off a lot of this like 200-ish hertz range, which gives you that like basketball sound. Not a great sound on kick drum, so I just didn't like that there. So I got rid of that. And it's actually bringing out some top in the snare as well. So not a bad change overall. So with kick drum, you really want it to be able to punch through in the top end, but also have the low end to add beef to your drum sound. You don't want it to be super thin, especially for this genre, and getting rid of a lot of those low mids to help it stand out. As you can see here, I didn't go to town processing every single kick channel. I started at the top with my buses, top-down mixing. I'm a really big fan of that because it's very efficient. And I got rid of some of the stuff at a bird's eye view. And I didn't have to process every single channel. It just kind of worked. So let's move on to snare now. So for snare, only a couple plugins it looks like. So virtual mix rack. Of course, this is one plugin, but you could say this is probably like 3 plugins because we've got a channel, some EQ, and some compressions here. So again, more top. A lot more top, like 5K and 1.5K, a little more low mid dip there. I find that with drums that have been recorded, like acoustically with real mics, not samples and stuff, they're way too dark and usually have a lot of unneeded low end information. And so if you boost some top, you're going to be okay there. Now, if you're already using sample drums like EC Drummer 3 or Superior Drummer 3, they tend to come in brighter than something that's been recorded acoustically because they're already kind of processed. So you don't have to get as heavy handed with the top end stuff where they're just going to sound thin. But with recorded drums, yeah, you're going to need some top end to get them to fit in a commercial mix. So that's making a big difference there. Then I added an EQ to the sample. A little more top end there, a little dip in the low mids. And really when it comes to drums, getting the kick and snare to sound right is like 90% of the drum sound. The rest of it's sort of icing on the cake. So you can see here, I have a bunch of stock EQs going. And all this is really doing is I'm just rolling off, I think, lows with all these. So for all these tracks, yeah, it's just like a high pass and a high shelf on all of these. Or some of these don't have the high shelf. But like for these taiko tracks and sticks and like different sampled stuff and loops, they're all just like loops and stuff. They don't need really much processing. They just don't need the stuff like below 100 hertz. And then this appears to be this tom track, or let's see, this is a overhead track, CLA mix up once again. I used an overhead preset, a ton of top, right, to add some pop to it. Some compression there, and it's just adding some extra excitement to this drum mix. So yeah, that is the drum mix there. Here it is once again. I'll bypass all the plugins, then put them back in, soloed, and then within the mix. So here's all the plugins bypassed. If I can get my DAW to cooperate with me. There we go. Now in the context of the mix.
You down before, and that I've hurt you bad. I know that sorry will not cut it, but I can swear I'll try to turn the world apart. If that's a way to find you and a place.
All right, so I hope that one was helpful there. If you have any questions about mixing drums, especially in a track like this, leave it in a comment down below. Also, if you'd like to see any other tips on songwriting, arranging, recording, leave it in a comment down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next time.